President Donald Trump revealed Sunday that he would be announcing a new Bureau of Labor commissioner in 3 or 4 days. This comes after a sizable downward jobs revision from the BLS. E.J. Antoni, chief economist for the Heritage Foundation, is with us to sort of break down all of these moves. Sir, these downward revisions from the BLS have sort of become a bit of a status quo in recent reports. We all remember that the massive benchmark payroll growth for the year ending in March 2024, getting revised downward by more than 800,000 jobs. So what do you make of the president's decision to remove the commissioner? Is this more about transparency and accountability? How do you view it, sir?
Well, I think you really hit the nail on the head there when you mentioned the large and consistent negative downward revisions. This is not simply a matter of the president was not happy with what the jobs report said. The number wasn't good enough. No, the number wasn't accurate enough. And this is also not a new problem either. This is something that the president was complaining about, that lots of folks, myself included, were complaining about last year. In fact, I was complaining about it for going on 3 years now. All the way back in the spring of 2022, it first became evident that there might be some issues with the data coming out of BLS. That was confirmed later in 2022, and those problems have been ongoing ever since then. These initial job estimates that we keep getting month after month just frankly aren't accurate enough. And that's really problematic when you consider how many major decision makers are relying on this data every single month, whether it's in Wall Street or whether it's here in Washington, D.C., like the Federal Reserve Board, for example. My goodness, these folks are trying to set the benchmark interest rate for our central bank, and they might be doing it on the basis of faulty data. I'm sorry, that's not good enough in this economy.
You even mentioned the Federal Reserve and how they make decisions based on this data, which is they are presuming to be accurate. I believe one of the dissents by Governor Waller even pointed out that revisions downward could point to the fact that the Fed needed to cut rates. So can you just talk about why accuracy and trust in this data is paramount when it comes to these types of decision makings, when it comes to things like cutting interest rates?
Well, I mean, you can argue, given the fact that all of the data the Fed has is always backwards looking, you can argue they're already driving fast at night with no headlights on. And then when you consider the fact that even what they're looking at isn't accurate, I mean, my goodness, they're drunk on top of it, I guess, at that point. It's a drunk driver at night with no headlights on, driving way too fast. So that's kind of the situation that we're in today. And look, I understand no numbers are going to be perfect. All of these things are estimates, completely understand that. I mean, again, my goodness, how do you even estimate something like the economy, how large it is and how complex it is, the total amount of economic activity? I understand and I appreciate how incredibly difficult this job is, but we also have to appreciate the fact that really nothing substantive has been done to address a problem that, again, has been here for 3 years now. In fact, just last week, before we got the monthly jobs number for July, just shortly before that in the week, we got numbers from the BLS that are not the monthly estimates, but rather it's a quarterly estimate. And instead of being from a survey of a relatively small number of businesses, it's actually works like a census of businesses. So it covers nearly all businesses in the country. And what that data showed was that in the fourth quarter of 2024, so the last 3 months of last year, job growth was overestimated again by hundreds of thousands. So we're going to see yet another one of those big annual revisions that you already mentioned earlier. And you're right, it was a big downward revision. We're going to see another one when we get that next annual revision. It'll be big and it'll be to the downside yet again. And look, if some of these were up and some of them were down and they were canceling each other out like they're supposed to, that would tell us that the data is essentially operating just fine. But there's clearly something wrong with the methods, with the methodology at BLS when we consistently have large revisions that are all going the same way. And it doesn't matter if they're up or down. Let's make that clear. If the numbers were constantly getting revised up, it would point to the same thing, in inaccuracy in the data. And again, like you said, that's problematic when this data is paramount that it be accurate.
E.J. Antoni, we appreciate your time here on One American News. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you for having me.